Looking Up. This is a podcast for Christian women. I'm Kathy Pollard, and with me is your other host, Carla Moore. And in this episode, we're going to be talking about something pretty personal for both of us. And I'll just go ahead and tell you, we're going to be talking about what we wish people knew about the preacher and his wife. You've probably heard and read a lot of things, and we would just like to share from our perspective. So I think we can have a lot of fun with that and handle it in a great, comfortable, lighthearted manner. But before we get into that, Carla, how have you been and what have you been up to?
I'm doing well, just getting ready to head back to Colorado. So we've got all the tubs out and spread out on the back deck, and I'm going to go home after this and pull things out of cabinets and pack. And John's really pushing me. I told you earlier that he's really pushing me to cut down on the amount of things that we take. And I'm not sure how I'm going to do that, because I thought I had already done that several times, cut down, but taking bikes, we're taking a cabinet we're going to stop in Fort Worth and see our middle son and his family on the way up, but we're taking them a cabinet. So we have to make room for that. And then it'll be plenty of room after that. So anyway, it's always a challenge, and it's like a puzzle, but John's always good at that, and we'll get it done.
So for those of you who might be tuning in for the first time, Carla and John spend, I guess, total about half of the year.
Yeah,
right, in Colorado, and they work with the Bear Valley Bible Institute out there. And so when you go this time, you'll be there, what, about 3.5 months?
Yeah,
so?
3 months.
3 months.
August through October.
Yeah, for a quarter, go back for a quarter, kind of back and forth like that. So you're loading up this trailer that you guys pull with a truck with everything that you'll need for the next 3 months.
Yeah, hoping we remember everything.
Hoping you remember, yeah.
John's always telling me, though, we can get things we need in Denver too. But, some things I want from home.
Mm-hmm.
I have my things in the kitchen that I like to carry back and forth. And I've cut down on a lot of that. I have a lot of duplicates now. So a lot of things that are there. Like I found a mixer at Goodwill that I use there. And so I don't have to carry that back and forth. So it's really not that big of a deal. But
what about your pillows and bedding?
Oh, we take our bedding. That. Yeah, we want it to feel like home. And that's one way we can make it feel like home. So we always take our quilt and pillows and our sheets and things like that. Yeah.
And you're heading out Friday morning
for
the trip. We'll be praying for your safe travels.
Yeah, I was looking at the forecast for Austin, and there's not a day under like 103, 104 for the next 10 days. So I am not sad to say goodbye to that. Although it's pretty warm. I was looking at Bear Valley's forecast, and they've got high 90s this week. But there's one day next week that the high is 81, which sounds amazing. So looking forward to that.
Plus no humidity.
Yeah, which can be a good thing and a bad thing. But this quarter, this is my favorite quarter as opposed to the snowy quarter, just because when the heater is on, and when the heater is on up there, it just super dry, and you get nosebleeds, and you're just constantly doing the lip balm thing and moisturizer and lotion. It's not as bad in the fall. Yeah. And this is when the leaves will start changing. And
so pretty.
It's my favorite quarter to be up there. And I'm looking forward to getting back on the bike up there. So anyway, it's all good. Yeah. What have you been up to?
Just, trying to can and preserve everything that's coming in the garden. I brought this little jar. These are sunburst tomatoes.
Oh, pretty.
They're little cherry tomatoes, but they're kind of, as they're ripening, they go through almost sunrise colors, yellow, orangish, red. And they're so pretty when you can them this way, and they're pretty sitting on the shelf because you leave them whole and you don't have to peel them or anything like that. And then whenever you want to use them, I typically use them to make like pizza sauce or sauce for pasta, and I'll just put some olive oil and garlic and shallot in a skillet and saute it up a little bit, add these, add some herbs or seasonings or whatever, and then use my immersion blender to mix it all up, and there's my sauce. So, but I just think these are so pretty. I always look forward to having these on the shelf. And
what kind of liquid is it in?
It's just water.
Oh.
Yeah, I cold packed them, which means I just fill them to the top with the tomatoes, and then I add a little bit of salt and citric acid, and then cover it with boiling water, and then can them in the water bath canner.
You need to send us a picture or post a picture of your black cabinet. I'm sure it's full of fun stuff now.
I'm starting to have to rearrange things a little bit to make room for everything. So, and
Mhm.
I have a whole counter full of regular tomatoes and lots of Roma tomatoes. This is our first time growing Roma tomatoes
Yeah.
and trying to figure out what I want to do. You can roast them, slow roast them in the oven and then pack them in olive oil, or you could can them whole. So I haven't quite
Mhm.
decided what I'm going to do, but we're in the middle of VBS week, so my time is limited, and
Yeah,
so I
I
have
was
a
just
whole counter
thinking,
full of tomatoes that are just calling out like, you better
yeah.
hurry up and do something with
And you
us.
can give
So
them to people at VBS too if you have an
yes,
overabundance.
yes, and we do. So
How is VBS going?
it's going great. It's our numbers have been really good. And last night, I was telling you this a little bit before we hit record. We had a petting zoo,
Mhm.
and a local farm, Westbrook Farms, brought out all these adorable animals. And I mean, an alpaca, Angora rabbits, and a pony, and a little calf, and what all was out there? Oh, a pig, potbelly pig. And but my favorite was this llama that was the cutest llama I've ever seen. He had the cutest hair, but his coloring, he was brown and white, speckled in his body, but his face was black and white speckled, and his sock area was black and white speckled. And he was just the cutest thing. And he was so friendly. And I walked away from that thinking I never even knew I wanted a llama
Uh-oh.
until just
Real.
now. I can really see him on our little farmette. He was
Mhm.
just so sweet and so cute. And they were letting the little kids feed animal crackers to all these animals. And his mouth was so funny just to watch. Did you know that llamas don't have upper teeth?
No, I did not know that.
Yes. So a lot of animals I learned last night, I think even including a cow, don't have upper teeth, just bottom teeth. Horses
Which would
have both.
explain why they chew, the way they chew.
Yeah. So, but he was so funny, like the way his lip would kind of move when he was taking in that animal cracker.
Mhm.
It was just the most adorable, adorable thing.
I
So,
saw a GIF, or no, it wasn't even a GIF. It was some kind of a just a social media post the other day about someone dressed up a llama as a groomsman at a wedding. It was hilarious. I laughed and laughed. They had like 10 pictures of him. So they, the wedding party was standing with him, but they put a jacket on him and then fake arms that were crossed
oh
in front of him,
no.
like like men stand at the front of an
Right,
auditorium,
right.
and then they had pants on his front legs. So then the wedding party is standing next to him, and this llama is standing there with a top hat. I think it was a top hat, but a tuxedo tie. And it was so cute. I'll have to see if I can find it and send it to you, because I don't know why do people do things like that, but it's hilarious. And
Yeah.
a person like me on the other side of the country is laughing at it.
Well, llamas just seem to have so much personality.
Yeah.
I think it'd be fun to have one. I don't want one for real, but I pretty much I told this llama last night. His name is Georgie. And
Georgie.
I said, I love you, Georgie.
Georgie
It was
Porgy.
just so
Pudding
cute.
pie.
That's right.
Yeah.
So
We
have you
went over
been
to,
thrifting?
I did, yeah. Don't let me forget, I was gonna tell you something about pizza.
Okay.
I found some Chanel shoes. If you're
Whoa.
watching, you can see them. And
Wow.
Chanel, that you see fake Chanel stuff all the time. And so
Mhm.
you have to really look and see things. You can tell quality when you see it, and I could tell that the leather, it's like lambskin, and it has all of the copyright stuff in it. And you can just tell by looking at the bottom if it's imprinted. And they make some pretty good fakes out there. So I'm
Huh.
not 100% sure. I'm 99% sure these are real, but you can authenticate them. So I'm excited to sell those because I don't have any interest in wearing them. But
What are they worth?
um new, they're like $1,000. I mean, I can't even fathom spending
What?
$1,000 on a pair of shoes. Probably more than that. I don't know. Chanel. I've honestly never shopped Chanel,
Yeah, me
but I
either.
did some comparable pricing, and they're selling anywhere from $150 to $400 used. So we'll
Huh.
see. We'll see.
Nice.
I found that, and I found a few other little things that I can't remember right now, but it's kind of a busy week, so I haven't done a whole lot, and I probably won't until a couple weeks from now again. But anyway, I was going to tell you that we went to Micah and Courtney's last Saturday, I think, and for Father's Day, she gave him one of those pizza ovens. Y'all have one of those?
No,
You need one of those.
I
You make pizza all
do.
the time.
I do need one.
It's gas powered, but I think you can use wood pellets too. But it's
Oh,
just one of those little metal dome shaped, and it slides in and out. And he uses San Marzano tomatoes. Do you use those? You use
Well,
your own.
I use my own now, but I did buy some per your request.
Mhm.
So I
Did
have
you
some in my
notice a
pantry.
difference?
Well, I
Have you
haven't
used them
actually
yet?
used them yet because we're going through our tomatoes right now.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you got fresh tomatoes. It amazes me what a difference those make. I mean, they're a good bit more expensive, but like I said before, you don't even have to add spices to me. If I make pizza, I don't even add any spice, and I love garlic. I just don't think it needs it. But anyway, he made homemade pizza with all this stuff, and it was yummy. And Livy was just on the edge of walking that night, just wanting to, you could hold on with the tip of your finger. But when we got home the next morning, they had sent us a video, and she started walking the next day. So sweet. I think I sent you that video, didn't I?
Yes, you did.
Yeah.
Yes, you did.
Yeah.
Oh, well, that sounds like a great weekend.
It was. And we went to Houston yesterday, and just for the day to say goodbye to Jordan and Aaron and the grandkids, because we won't see them again most likely until November. So I jumped on the trampoline.
Hard part.
Yeah, it is.
The hard part of your going back and forth.
Yeah, it is.
A
lot of times we get to see them in between. We'll see them for lectureship or something in between, but this time I don't think we will. So, yeah.
I was going to say the closest I've come to Chanel is we have a really sweet lady at church, Peggy Hunt, who gives me she subscribes to Victoria Magazine and Southern Lady. And when she's done reading them, she passes them on to me. And Sunday morning, she gave me a bunch of them in a Chanel bag.
Oh, like a sack? Like
a shopping.
Oh,
with a gift. It looks like gift bag. And so I was walking out with that, and somebody commented on, "Oh, look at your Chanel bag," and I was like, "Yes, somebody gave me some magazines in it. I'm really excited to have this bag."
Well, it's a $5 stuff.
That's as close as I've come.
I just don't have any desire.
I don't either.
And I guess, and I'm thankful for that, because I don't really want to live in a world that I feel pressure to have designer stuff. And I mean, I like quality. I like to buy things that are going to last and that will have resale value. If I get tired of it, I want to be able to resell it again. But for something like that, I just don't have any desire to have expensive stuff like that.
To get something with a name on it just because it has that name on it. That's kind of blah.
Yeah. Anyway.
Well, I have a pizza question. How long does it take to cook a pizza in one of those things?
It was quick. I mean, like less than 3 minutes, I want to say. And you have to really watch it because it's so close to the fire, it can burn. And I think this was kind of he was learning, and I don't think he had done it at all before. He had just taken it out of the box. So I think he said that he spilled some flour on the floor of the oven. And then when he put the next pizza on top of it, that flour was a little burned. So when he pulled the pizza out, it kind of charred the bottom of the pizza. So you have to, I'm sure he would be happy to tell you, but something about clearing out the bottom or keeping the bottom clean. But Jake has one too. And I mean, I think Jordan even has some kind of something for one of his grills that does pizzas. So they're all into the pizza making. And I am happy to be there for it.
Yes, that would be so fun.
Do you do yours in the oven, in the broiler, or what? How do you?
I put a stone in the oven as soon as I turn it on, so that the stone gets really hot, and I put it in there at a really high temperature. Yeah. And then I make our pizza up on parchment paper on the counter. And then when it's ready, I slide the parchment paper onto that hot stone. And it kind of is supposed to be the closest you can get to a pizza oven. And then sometimes if I want a little more of a char on it, I'll stick it under the broiler for half a minute or so at the very end.
Well, I'm pretty sure I could say that is my favorite food. I'm such a
Yeah.
kid. Just
Oh.
pizza. Oh, love pizza.
Oh, mine too. Somebody had asked that question, if you were on a desert island, you could only eat one food for the rest of your life, what would it be? And I said pizza, because you can
Mhm.
do anything with a pizza. You
Yeah.
can go in any flavor direction you want with the
Mhm.
toppings. You can even do dessert pizza. So you pretty
Yeah.
much got everything. You could have breakfast pizza,
Mhm.
taco pizza,
Dessert pizza.
dessert pizza, regular
Mhm.
pizza, all those things. So why
Yeah.
not?
Well, he made an extra one that night for his neighbor. This man, his name is Frank, and he has helped Micah so often with his truck. You know, when your kids live away from you, it makes you feel really good to know that they have neighbors that will help them. And,
Mhm.
a couple of years ago during that ice storm, when no one had electricity and the streets were completely iced over, no one was going anywhere, doing anything, and no one had heat.
Mhm.
And they had neighbors, and I don't know if it was Frank or it was another one, but they had neighbors that brought them wood for the fireplace.
Oh,
And they were new
nice.
there. I mean, brand new to that little
Mhm.
neighborhood. So anyway, Micah made a pizza for Frank, and he called him and he wasn't there. And I was thinking, Frank, you don't know what you're missing out on. But he showed up and Micah took that pizza over to him. So
Oh,
it's always good to be around when pizza is being made.
yeah, and good for Micah for thinking about that.
Yeah.
That's a
Yeah, it
good
was sweet.
neighborly thing to do.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I almost
Well,
forgot to tell you,
mhm.
also that we ended up with a bunch of extra chickens this week.
How? Like live chickens?
Yes, yes. This was not on our to-do list. This was nowhere in my planner for the week. But Sunday night, Smith Sexton, who's one of our members, asked me if I'd be interested in having their chickens,
Mhm.
because they had gotten them for their daughter, supposed to be her project or whatever. And I don't know, she just got tired of it or whatever, but they had decided that it was time to let them go. And they're about the same age as our new flock.
Mhm.
And they're already laying, and there's 8 of them, and they are golden comet, and I think he said the other one was blue wine dot, or however you say that. I don't even know how to say that
I
word.
have no idea.
And so anyway, he wanted to know if we'd be interested in them, and I said sure. Well, I didn't know he meant like now, because we were not prepared. And so he drove up Monday morning, the very next morning, in his truck with all of these chickens.
You said
And
8?
yes, and
Okay.
usually you can't merge 2 new flocks together. You have
Mhm.
to have them in a separate space and gradually introduce them,
Mhm.
and when you
Meet and
put them
greet.
together, yeah, when you put them together, you have to have them kind of fenced off where they can't really get to each other, so that'll be a gradual, hey, let's
Mhm.
be friends and not kill each
Yeah.
other.
Peck each other's eyes out.
Yeah, so anyway, he showed up. We were so not prepared. And but we took them and ended up turning out the other flock, which they've been really flighty, and so they are temporarily in the barn. And then we had to scrub out the coop from top to bottom, because we didn't want to introduce any, old
Mhm.
flock, whatever, to this brand new flock, and scrub all that out. We removed the run and emptied all that out and put down all fresh everything. And it was so hot that day.
Uh,
So I mean,
yeah.
I don't sweat. I know this is TMI, but I just don't sweat typically. And I
Mhm.
had sweat just pouring,
Yeah.
pouring off.
Me too. I understand what you're
And
talking about.
we're trying to kind of like make this up as we go and trying to figure out what to do. And it's hot, and we're, trying not to be grumpy with each
It's a lot of
other. And
work.
it was a lot of work. It was a lot of work. But anyway, now that it's all done, and they're usually, when you move a flock, that transition is a little bit traumatic for them, and they'll stop laying temporarily. But this one never skipped a beat. Like, same day they're laying eggs. And
Mm.
so, and they're really pretty. They're like a really deep dark brown, and then some of them are a little bit lighter brown.
How many did you have to begin with?
We had 5. We were
Okay.
down to 5, and so now we have 13. 13 chickens.
And they've met one another and they're okay, or are they still
Oh,
separated?
they're still separated.
For
They're
how
still
long?
separated. Today, we just now let the new girls out to free range.
Mhm.
So they will run into the other girls, but we're not going to keep them together at night yet. So,
You don't have any roosters?
mm-mm.
Just girl hens, right?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, maybe you need like 2 separate wire cages and you just set them near each other, and then they can look at each other but can't reach each other.
Yeah, we have a tractor that we can put into the coop, and we'll probably put, when we're ready to merge them together at night, we'll probably put the 5 of the old, because it's not really big enough for 8 chickens. It's not really big enough for 5 chickens. Last time we had to do that, our chickens were raising them from chicks, and they were just pullets. They were like teenager size. And but anyway,
you're gonna be overflowing with eggs.
Yes, we are. So, all right.
Well, that'd be a good thing to do. I'm going to plug my iPad in before it dies. I was going to mention that I was having a conversation with a friend of mine on Sunday. Her name is Jerry Bellier, and I mean, we've known each other for a good number of years, and she was the camp nurse at Peach Valley for several years. So we've, I mean, we're friends, and I think of her as a friend, but I tend to forget she is the PA, a physician's assistant. No, I think she is the PA. I can't remember what exactly she is, but in the same office as my doctor, but she works for a different doctor. And so we were just talking about something else, and she said, "Oh yeah, I heard you say that on the podcast." And right when she said that, I was like, "Oh, it makes me think she probably," and I said this to her, I said, "Then you probably also heard me say that I hate going to the doctor." It's one of those things that like, I get caught up, and I'm talking to you on here, and I tend to forget that there's other people that listen. So I just
and most of the time that's perfectly fine.
Yeah. Well, so I'm sure other people out there have the same issue I do. I call it white coat syndrome. And I've had more doctor's appointments in the last month than I have in a long time. Just some routine stuff. Anyway, I'm fine. But every time I go to the doctor, my blood pressure will be like 189 over 95. And I'm like, I promise it's just because I'm here. And I take my blood pressure every night. And most nights it's like 125 over 78, it's normal. But if you start talking doctor, even if I hear that Velcro of the blood pressure cuff, I'm like, oh, okay, I don't know.
Anxiety.
Yes, I do. It's so dumb. And I can't figure out why. And it's embarrassing because I've been to several new doctors, and I had a procedure, and at this procedure, she took my blood pressure, and it was one of those cuffs that they set and they walk away. And when she came back in, I noticed she's looking at the screen above my head, and she goes, "I don't know whether to trust that." And I said, "Well, if it's high blood pressure, it probably is right." And I tried to explain to her how it's always high whenever I go to the doctor, even if I don't feel completely like, she put me at ease, and I felt I wasn't nervous. I knew what to expect. They had told me exactly what was going to happen, which probably my blood pressure would have been 250 over 125. But so she took it again, and it was still pretty high. But before I left, she took it, and it was like 160 or whatever. She said, "Well, I can live with that, but I was going to have to call your doctor just to get an okay for you to leave." And like I said, I keep records, and I always tell my doctor, I just always say, "Look, it's this way at home." We even took it one time to the doctor and compared hers with ours, and it was basically the same. I think I've told you that. But anyway, all of that to say, Jerry and anyone else, it's not you, it's me. And she knows that. I know she knows that. But, it just got me to thinking about some people. Sometimes we say things that I say them flippantly, and, there's no context. And so I'm so thankful for doctors, and I just don't like going. I like other people to go to the doctor, but not me.
Well, and maybe your anxiousness is you really haven't had to do it a lot, have you?
Right.
In your life? I mean, it's not been a normal part of your daily life, right?
Yeah. And part of it is that I probably have not gone as much as I should have because I don't like going. And now, there's that. Have you seen the meme that says you better enjoy your 20s and 30s because in your 40s and 50s, your check engine light comes on? Like, okay, the check engine light has come on.
Yes,
so got to do some checking of that engine. Just trying to be a grown up. We were talking about was it last week or week before about we can't eat Cocoa Puffs every day, all day and be healthy, just making myself do things that I really don't want to do.
I guess it's time to be a grown up.
Yes.
But your engine is good, right?
Yeah, mostly. Yeah.
Mostly good.
I mean, it's just the typical
Mm-hmm.
things that start wearing out.
Yeah.
And that's okay. It's just the way it is. And I'm trying to take care of what I have and eat better and exercise and, just take care of what I have.
Yep. Please do that.
Okay. You too.
Okay. Well, I do want to take a second to offer thanks to, you remember in the last episode, I said something about being frustrated with my sourdough attempts.
Yeah.
Or was that 2 weeks ago?
Well, it must have been maybe we talked about it 2 weeks ago, but you just posted a picture this week.
Yeah. Anyways, some people did message me and they either gave me some tips or here's what I do. Like step one was step by step, or they sent me to websites of people that they feel like their instructions make sense and they've had good success. So I've just got a lot of good information and tips. And so I just thought I'm just gonna jump in there, and I've about decided my problem has been my starter just really needed beefed up. And so I spent 3 days in a row of just focusing on the starter, feeding it every day, emptying the discard, feeding it, emptying out discard, feeding it until it was really, really, really good and bubbly. And then it was like starting over, I'm just going to start over. And so I made a successful regular loaf of sourdough. And then yesterday I made cinnamon swirl bread. And this was an enriched loaf because it has honey and coconut oil in it. It wasn't just like bread and water and salt, it had extra things in it. And but the dough felt good and it smelled good while I was working with it, and it actually did everything it was supposed to do. This morning we had some toasted with our eggs for breakfast.
Yummy.
And so, yay!
You did it.
Thanks to all the help. I still, I know I'm still going to have flops, but at least there's a little bit of hope.
Yeah. Well, sounds like you said, go into it beefing up your base or what you start with, and that helps. I mean, then that's kind of a lesson in life. So start it off right and do it right to begin with, right?
That's right. Should that be a good segue into
a
serious topic? Is there anything else you want to say?
Nope, I'm good.
All right. So we are talking about, I think we're going to call it what we wish everyone knew about the preacher and his wife, because you run across articles like that, what we wish everyone knew about the preacher or about people in ministry. And a lot of times it seems like those articles tend to have a little bit of a negative slant. Wouldn't you agree?
Or a lot.
Okay, a lot. And and I think we just wanted to share maybe a little bit different perspective. And we both have been in this for a long time. And Carla, I'll let you share yours here in a second. But I grew up in a preaching family. My dad was a gospel preacher my entire growing up, and I knew I wanted to marry a preacher. And then even while Neil and I were dating, he was a youth minister at Grammy Pines. And then when we got married, he was full-time minister. So for 31 years, been a preacher's wife, married to a preacher. And what is your background?
My dad was Bible chair director at Navarro Junior College when I was born. And then we moved to San Marcos, and he was Bible chair director. It used to be Southwest Texas State University, now just Texas State University, for the church in San Marcos. So from the time I was 8 until John and I married 10 years later. Yes, I know that was very young, but and then John started doing the same work. He worked in the ministry at the Bible chair. And then we went to Southwest School of Bible Studies, where John was an instructor for several years, and then came here to Dripping Springs, I think 17 years full time, and now at Bear Valley. So I've never known anything other than a life in ministry. My parents were, and then John and I we've been married 37 years since 1986. I always have to do the math. So, it hasn't always been perfectly smooth, but everything that has been bad that we would classify as bad has led to good things. So
Mhm.
it's been a blessing all the way through.
Mhm.
So been good.
Yeah, and I do want to start out by saying this is in no way, shape, or form trying to discount
Right.
any feelings that somebody else might have in
Mhm.
ministry, any articles that have been written and their experiences. We just wanted to share our perspective, which
Mhm.
might be a little bit different than some of the things that you read out there all the time. And so I know that ministry, you can find yourself in a difficult situation. You can find yourself in a situation where the leadership isn't very doctrinally sound or courageous. Maybe you do find yourself in a situation where there are unrealistic expectations. So I know things like that can happen, but I feel like people are aware of that already,
Right.
and this is what we wish everyone would know about the
Mhm.
preacher and his wife. So where would you start with this conversation?
Well, along with what you just said, I've learned, especially over the last maybe 15 years, that just because I've experienced one thing doesn't mean that others don't experience something completely different.
Mhm.
And we haven't moved around a lot. I was started in Corsicana, moved to San Marcos. So Corsicana, San Marcos, Austin, Dripping Springs, and Denver. So really only 5 places. And I know a lot of people that are in ministry tend to move around a lot. And I just we just never did. And I think there's different reasons for that. Some people want to, some
Mhm.
people don't necessarily want to, and they do they find themselves in a situation where they have to. But all that to say that just because I have not experienced the bad things in ministry I'm not saying that they don't happen. I've realized that they really do. And really, there are some congregations, some groups of people that don't handle themselves well, and they do hurt ministry families. So I know we've had plenty of personal discussions about these, and we know that it happens, but you and I have had overall just wonderful experiences. So I'm thankful for that.
Yeah.
And you wanted me to start off giving some reasons, or what direction are you wanting to go?
Yeah, you
Um,
can do that. Where would you start with something that you would want others to know?
about well, I wrote some things down, like what do we want from other members of the church as far as ministry families, what we're looking for, what we hope to find is relationship.
Mhm.
And I mean, I don't guess that would be first and foremost, because what we're in ministry for is to bring others to Christ and to show them God, and to live our lives in such a way that would draw others to him. But just on the purely, maybe, I don't think it's selfish, but on a personal level, I think that we want to have a relationship with the members of our congregations,
Mhm.
and for them to realize that we're just like them.
Mhm.
We're not any different. We have the same struggles and the same issues, and we're not any holier than they are.
Mhm.
I think we have more opportunities to grow and to learn, but we're not any different. God does not see us any differently than he does any other Christian family. He doesn't see
Mhm.
you and me he doesn't love us anymore. He doesn't necessarily expect anymore, although I think we have more opportunities.
Mhm.
Um, but we're just ordinary people, don't you think?
Well, I don't know about ordinary.
I should have said earlier, I have this cough, and so I'm going to sound like a smoker if I start laughing and coughing. So I'll apologize ahead of time. Don't make me laugh.
I was just going to say goal for this episode. Make Carla
Yeah.
laugh.
Great.
Yeah, as ordinary as we can be. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Which, as people probably already have learned, is not super ordinary.
Yeah, and I think though that most places that you go, it seems like people realize that um I don't think that the average person has higher expectations of us or treats us any differently because we're in the minister's family. And I know some have experienced that. I'm not trying to discount that, but I think overall, or I should say, in my experience, um, if I have met somebody that kept me at arm's length or treated me different because I was the preacher's wife, they hid it well. You
Yeah.
know, what I'm saying is, if that did happen, I didn't even know about it. So I think that a lot of people in congregations are willing to accept you at face value for who you are, you know, Be genuine, be loving, be humble, all those things that
Mhm.
everybody wants from somebody in a relationship, and you can have good relationships.
Don't you think it's like so many other things? There will be a congregation of 200 people, and there might be 5 of them who don't behave or treat you the way that you want to be treated.
Mhm.
And we focus on those 5 rather than the other 195 that
Mm.
are perfectly kind and nice and don't have any critique or ugly criticism, whatever. Um,
Exactly.
but
Yeah.
so I think it's good for us to focus on the ones that that don't have a problem with us and don't worry about it.
Mhm.
Because so many times in a situation like that, those 5 people don't really have a leg to stand on, and they don't speak for everyone, and God knows them, they know us. God knows us and knows them, and he considers the source. So
Yeah, and I definitely didn't mean to imply that everywhere we've been, everybody has loved me. 'Cause that is definitely not the case, and that's okay.
Mhm.
And sometimes it's a situation where you can't even put your finger on why, but
Yeah,
somebody just might not like you very much, and we're not all going to click all the time with
yeah,
everybody that we meet. But I don't what I'm saying is I don't think that has anything to do with the fact that I'm the preacher's wife. I think
right,
that's true for everybody
yeah.
wherever you go, even on the job or in any, not just ministry, in any role in life, there are going to be people that don't necessarily find you great. Just
I don't know
you're
what's
just,
wrong with them,
I
but
don't know what's wrong with it, but you're just not their favorite person. And
yeah.
like you said, I could name some names. We could focus on that,
Mhm.
um, or just realize that most people, if you're loving to them, they're going to be loving right back. And but like I said, the point is that if that does exist, and it probably does, that there are people who don't like you very much. And when I say you, I mean us, me.
'Cause you're surely not
Um,
talking about me.
no, I can't imagine anybody in the world not liking you. And that's for reals.
No,
But I just don't think it's because we're preachers' wives.
right.
And I think that when we say things like that, we're kind of selling other people short, because that'd be a
Mhm.
pretty shallow reason. And I just don't think that that would be a real legitimate reason.
Yeah, it
So,
may just be personality differences and just,
yeah.
or sometimes I think that we may accidentally say things that are taken
Mhm.
wrong, and we don't know that we have hurt somebody's feelings, and
Mhm.
it just spirals sometimes from there, but that doesn't happen very often. I really don't think. I think
Mhm.
sometimes for people who do have that happen all the time, say this carefully, but I think, what is the common denominator? Is it
Mhm.
me? Am I the one that am I taking things the wrong way all the time? Or, it's just something we need to consider. I think that it might be
Mhm.
not necessarily in our own minds, but we might be taking it wrong. We might be looking for
Yeah.
things.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's kind of a good segue into one of the first things that I was thinking about. I really have two main things that I
Okay.
want to get across when I think about what I wish people knew. And the first one that came to my mind is the fact that we're not a victim. We're not
Mm. I wrote the
we're
same
not
thing.
we're not targeted.
We're not
We're not
victims and
victims.
martyrs.
We're not martyrs. That's a better word
Mhm.
for it. I wish I'd thought of that one. And I think that some of these things that we might read or see out there that are shared, and I'm not saying there isn't a brighter side and more positive outlook, but maybe they just don't get shared as much. But most of
Yeah.
the things it seems like that you see that are written about something along the lines of people who work in ministry is negative.
Mhm.
And it almost comes across like this victimitis, all of these things are happening because I'm the preacher's wife, or because my husband's the preacher, or and
Mhm.
I don't believe that at all.
Mhm.
And again, as we're covering our covering our tracks here, we're not trying to say it has never happened or discount anybody's feelings, but from my personal perspective, I do not believe that at all. I don't think that anybody going into ministry is targeted for all these bad things to happen to just because you're in ministry. And I don't think that playing the martyr is a joyful, peaceful existence for any role, but especially in ministry. And you're going
Mhm.
to find what you're looking for. So if you go in, maybe somebody told you ahead of time, who experience something bad, that this is how you're going to be treated because you're the preacher's wife or whatever, then you go in looking for that, If I were to do that, I would start finding it. But I think that we mentioned that there can be challenges and things that might be difficult that you experience in ministry. And I was thinking about like personality clashes, misunderstandings, hurt feelings. These are just things that are experienced by everybody.
Yeah.
All the members of the congregation are going to experience these things. And if we walk into any work with a chip on our shoulder, then maybe that's how we'll start viewing things with a little bit skewed perspective and start feeling like a martyr. And that's just going to damage the work.
Personality differences. We mentioned this, I don't remember what week it was, but how when you go into a work as the minister's family and you're the preacher's wife, people know who you are just because, they've announced, okay, we've hired John Moore, he's coming in to take this role, and his wife is Carla, and their children are so-and-so. So they've announced your name. Maybe it's been in the bulletin, and, maybe they've given a little reception for you to introduce you to the congregation. So everyone knows your name, who you are. I mean, they've watched you come in. And so right there, I think for some of us who are introverted or shy or self-conscious about things, that kind of puts us on edge to be in the spotlight. But also on the other side of it, we have to learn a lot of new names and a lot of faces, and we come in hopefully not knowing if there's issues. Sometimes you're going to get an earful from people ahead of time about members, and that's not a great thing. But so for all of these people, say you have a congregation of 200 people and they all know who you are, but you're having to learn 200 names and figure out the family connections, which is always tricky. Or there's always some people that enjoy being close to the preacher's family and others that don't. So maybe you learn their name at that reception that they give you. But then if you're anything like me, I'm so busy thinking about what I'm going to say next because I'm nervous about meeting a bunch of people. I'm not going to remember the name. So you come across them the next time, and because they've met you, they might think, oh, she'll remember me, but you don't because you're nervous, whatever. And so, it's just a mindset. I think if we accidentally hurt someone's feelings because we don't remember their name or something about them, I think we can take some responsibility for that and just say, I am so sorry. I'm new and I'm trying to learn your name. Can you remind me one more time, and I'll do my best to remember it. And, we can take it humbly and do our best to receive it well, rather and work on making that better rather than just going, can't believe they expect me to understand and know all these names right away. So it's just a mindset going in with some humility, with some grace already, just intentionally deciding I'm going to give grace, as much grace as I'm expecting from other people. I'm going to give that. So, I just think that there's all kinds of situations that can make it a harder transition or make ministry hard, but it doesn't have to be that way. We can do what we can to make it better.
Yeah. And I'm glad that you brought up grace already, because I was hoping to touch on that too. And that was a great example. And I remember when we first moved here, I had a couple of different people just a couple weeks in come up to me and say, now what's my name?
Oh,
I know.
Not nice.
I know, that was what was going on in my head. My first thought was, oh my goodness, and I was like,
Yeah.
And so one of them repeated it, and I didn't really appreciate that, but it actually worked because it stuck.
Now you remember.
It stuck.
Yeah.
But then the next time I saw him, I was thinking, please ask me, because I remembered it. So I tried so hard to remember it. And instead of asking me their name, they said they had their daughter in front of them. Now, what's my daughter's name? But yeah, that was nerve-wracking. But
I'll say
we want them to give us grace as we're learning names and getting to know people and getting to know how things are done, and finding our place and all of these things. And we should offer them the same. We should offer them the same grace. And it really breaks my heart when I read something that's posted in such a way that it almost vilifies the church.
Yeah.
It almost makes it seem, you can almost hear the bitterness and the resentment coming across. Maybe they were hurt or they had a bad experience, but, saying bad things about the church or the leadership or bashing it, is so painful to read.
Mhm.
And I think it's Satan's tool because it becomes an us versus them. It's us and the church.
Yeah.
It's us versus the church. And that's just not the case. We are the church.
Mhm.
And we're all serving and working together in the kingdom. And
Yeah.
so extending grace, we want them to be patient with us and all of our foibles and imperfections. And when I look back over, my years in ministry, I know I've fallen short in so many ways. And there were unmet expectations that people had of me, either ones I was aware of or not.
Mhm.
It happens. And I've most of the time received grace from them in those situations.
Yeah.
And so, it goes both ways. It goes both ways. And I think if we remind ourselves of that, we can get out of this whole martyr complex that sometimes can be really easy to fall into.
Yeah. Having the mindset that it's a blessing to be in ministry, and it really is, just means that you make up your mind that this is how I'm going to see it. And it's not necessarily just having a Pollyanna personality, where you find the sunshine in everything. It really is determining that I'm doing this for God, and there is no better way to live than to live a Christian life. There just really isn't. I'm just 100% plus convinced of that. And you don't have to be in ministry. Well, I say that you don't have to be a preacher's family to feel that way, to live that way, because every Christian can live that way, no matter your profession. And I think ministry families are just blessed because we get to spend more time on it. And are there frustrations? Yes. Disappointments? Yes. You made me a little bit car sick right there for a second.
All right. My screen.
Yeah. Anyway, it's just having that attitude and deciding that we're going to approach our life this way just makes things better from the very get-go, and makes you look at things differently and prevents you from seeing them automatically in a negative way. And, there's been times, of course, you and I both, a lot of times I'll be down about something and John is up about it, and vice versa. He'll be down and I'll be up. And I think God gives us that in a way
Yes.
intentionally to be able to balance each other out, because just being able to see clearly is a valuable thing. And it's when one of you can't, the other one usually can. Do y'all experience that too?
Oh, absolutely. And I'm so grateful for God's wisdom in that. And I was thinking with what you just said that just because it's so rewarding and full of blessings doesn't mean it's always easy. And, it can be hard at times.
Sure.
Sometimes you have to really humble yourself. Sometimes you have to acknowledge what you just blew it. There have been times when I've had to acknowledge I just messed up or I've let somebody down. There'll be times when, maybe a situation happened that was an unfair or unrealistic situation, and so it's not that, or feeling like you always need to take the high road, can be hard. Feeling like you never really have a day off can be hard. Always on call, but a lot of jobs have that. And a lot of Christians that aren't in ministry might have the same fellowship activities on their day off, so it's not that it's just easy all the time and never hard, but it's rewarding. And to me, it's just like gardening or farming. You talk about the simple life and the wholesome life and all these beautiful things. Well, it's not necessarily easy. It's hard work to get out there, and it's hot and it's dirty and it's grimy and it's sweaty and there's bugs and, all these things, but it's so rewarding. and full of blessing, and you reap what you sow. Just
Mhm.
it's such a simple principle, but um you mentioned all the blessings, and that was my second thing. And I was thinking, if I could just sum up everything, and what I would want other people to know is we're not martyrs or victims, and it is a very blessing filled life. It's a very rewarding life. And um, you already know this because I shared it in a class, but when Neil and I had celebrated our 21st anniversary, I came up with a list of 21 reasons why I love being a preacher's wife. And I always said that when we got to our 31st anniversary, I would add 10 reasons to it. Well, as we're preparing for this podcast, it dawned on me that that 31st anniversary came and went. So
Ah.
I forgot to add the 10 more reasons. But I went back and read the original ones, and I still stand by them,
Mhm.
and I'm sure I could add more. But there are so many beautiful, rewarding things about being in ministry and getting to work with the best people.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I was thinking it would probably be, I mean, I'm sure it would be good for us to acknowledge the hard things. And maybe
Mhm.
I wrote down some of the things that what I wish people knew about me as a preacher's wife. And mine's been a little bit different because John was a Bible chair. He worked in the college ministry for a while. So I wasn't the preacher's wife.
Mhm.
And then when we went to Southwest, he was teaching in the school. So again, I wasn't the preacher's wife. When we came here to Dripping Springs, dad was the full-time preacher. So mom was the preacher's wife. So I've kind of been in the shadow, in the shade a little bit until John became full-time here at Dripping. And then everybody knew me, and I didn't really consider myself any different from anyone else. No one ever treated me any different. Maybe they did and I didn't see it. Maybe I'm just obtuse. I don't know. So it's just been, maybe I've had it somewhat easier in as far as the spotlight, but I've just never felt like I lived in a glass house. Never have felt like
Mhm.
that. And I know some women do, but what I wish people knew about me, uh, and these are the words that I wrote down. I'm ordinary. I'm flawed. I'm not always admirable. Sometimes our marriage has had its periods of struggle. We get discouraged sometimes, when people don't show up, when we feel like we're carrying the lion's share of the work. And what is that
Mhm.
saying, that 10% of the people do 90% of the work, and it's usually the same ones, but thank God for those same ones. And what can we do differently to encourage others? And again, I think if we're playing the victim and playing the martyr, what is attractive about that? To
Nothing.
encourage others to join in with what we're doing.
Mhm.
Nothing. There's nothing
Nothing.
attractive about that.
Mm-mm.
I think that, like vacations, I don't know about y'all, but we didn't really take vacations. If we ever did go anywhere on a little vacation, it was always because John was speaking somewhere. Maybe he was
Mhm.
preaching in a gospel meeting. And so all of us would go and we'd take little side trips. So we didn't have typical, go off and do something fun for a week. But at the same time, we did go and meet other people that were part of the Lord's body in other places. And we were blessed by them. I can't tell you how many relationships we have because of trips like that. So,
Mhm.
it's a balancing act. There may be
Mhm.
some things that we didn't do, but the benefits always far outweighed the negatives. There's the whole money, and that's a huge one. I think a lot of times we struggle on when we're in ministry because you don't feel like you can, and you don't want to profit from it, but yet you still
Mhm.
need to feed your family, and you don't, how little is too little, how much is too much. That's a tricky thing.
Mhm.
But, we work through it. And I think that for the vast majority of places, no one wants the preacher to live, just barely eke out an existence. And I think sometimes we portray ourselves as feeling like we do. But, I've said this before. There have been times that we feel like, who counsels the counselor,
Mhm.
and who ministers to the minister, and who leads the leader and encourages the encourager. But usually when we're saying things like that is at a low point. And then when we
Mhm.
get past that low point, we look back and we see, oh, so many ways that God provided people to encourage us when we needed encouragement and when we
Very
needed
true.
someone to counsel with us. Maybe it didn't look like sitting down at someone's desk and having a formal counsel session, but older, wiser people that God put in our path and put in our lives to counsel us. Think of the Dan Winklers, and Mike Vestal may not want me to call him an older man, although he is older than us. But, we've had lots of people that we've been blessed to call friends that have advised us over the years wisely because we were a family in ministry. So those maybe sound like things that are difficult, but God always provided what we needed. It just may not have looked like what I wanted it to look like at the time. So I thought maybe, we needed to acknowledge that there are those things that feel negative, but God always provides what we need.
Very good. That's beautiful. That's beautiful. Well, I was thinking about the positive, completely positive approach to all of this and what we wish everyone knew, since maybe not everybody gets to hear about all these things. And Carla, you and I, when we brought this up a while back, actually, when we were brainstorming of things to talk about on the podcast. And the disadvantage to a topic like this is not all of our listeners are preachers' wives or in ministry. But even if you're not, you have a preacher's wife. And you probably have been exposed to some of these things that are written out there about how hard it is to be in ministry or whatever. So that's why we wanted to share this. And I thought of, first of all, that we get to work with the best people. Our coworkers are Christians, and there aren't a lot of different, careers that you could go into where that's the case. And what a huge blessing that is. It doesn't mean that every relationship is going to be absolutely perfect and smooth all the time, but we have the most important foundation. And that's our walk with Christ and the most important goal. And that's to serve his people and take as many people as we can to heaven. So, I mean, blessing number one right there.
Yeah. I think about that often at Bear Valley because, that trip that we took in 2018, the Israel trip, it was like going on a trip with 45 of your best friends. And I mean, that's just never going to happen again, because
I know.
when I walk up and down the hall in my mind and think of how so many of those people are just our dearest friends, and we have the same goal, the same mindset, the same, we're brothers and sisters, and brothers and sisters have squabbles and irritations with one another sometimes, but it's just the greatest.
It is. And uplifting events, you kind of alluded to this one already, because it's our job. We get to take advantage of a lot of these gospel meetings and lectureships and seminars and ladies' days, or you mentioned the trip to Israel, mission trips. These are things that it's easier for us to participate in because we're in ministry. And I know there's a lot of other people that would like to do more, but maybe they can't get as much time off from work, so that to me is a great opportunity, because we, a lot of times we're participating in those events, but we get to come back from them revived and refreshed, and we've learned more and equipped ourselves. And then there's, and I know you'll agree with this one, all the encouragement through the years. I mean,
absolutely.
Think about all those dear sweet people who seems like have made it their life's mission to lift up the preacher and his family, and they come love on your children, and take them in as their own. They never miss an opportunity to say a kind word to you or express gratitude, like way more than you deserve encouragement. And, or maybe they send you a sweet note. We have a sister here, Amanda Loden. Every now and then we get a card from her in the mail, and she just writes how grateful they are that we're here. And she usually lists one or two specific things. She's real thoughtful. And yes, as you mentioned, to balance it out, we've received criticism through the years, but who hasn't?
Yeah, in any job.
Everybody has received criticism. Yeah. How about all the prayers on our behalf? How often right before the announcements, when somebody prays at the beginning or end of worship, how often is the minister's family mentioned in there? Yeah.
Yeah.
Or somebody will tell you that they've prayed for you in your work. Opportunities for growth.
Also known as constructive criticism.
Well, but I was also thinking it could be that some things that you might feel the need to participate in don't come naturally to you.
Yeah.
It could be, raise your hand, that you're an introvert, or and you have to step out of your comfort zone.
Yeah.
But what a blessing, to grow and to have the opportunity to stretch yourself. And if you're ever going to be forced out of your comfort zone, who better to do it with than God's people, who are going to encourage you and who have your back. And
you just a minute ago when you were talking about encouragement that we receive, it made me start thinking down in my mind about how it's so interesting when over the years when John has been gone and I have not been able to go with him. So I'll, back when the boys were growing up, if they had school, whatever, when he's here, we'll both after worship go our separate ways, talking to different people, and we'll be, often the last to leave. But when John is gone, I tend to, if he's not here for whatever reason, I duck out pretty quick. And that is probably, there's maybe something psychological about that, but I'm just thinking of personality types and how tempting it is to not take advantage of those opportunities to grow if we don't feel completely at ease. And so here, I think this is a huge one for preachers' wives. And let's just face it, a lot of us are introverted because opposites attract. And there's a lot of extroverted preachers. And John and Neil are both that way. And I don't know that most people would consider you and I to be an introvert, but I think we both naturally are to begin with, but we've grown out of it because we've been forced out of it.
Right.
But we still have those tendencies. Like you love to be at home. I love to be at home. And, but yet we have all of these opportunities to be gently pulled out of that. I don't think being an introvert is a bad thing, but I think that we have to force ourselves from being a hermit sometimes, or to walk up to someone and introduce ourselves doesn't come naturally. But there's so many biblical principles about loving one another and expressing that love and being together and encouraging one another, lifting one another up. And how can you do that if you're at home all the time? How can you do that if you just leave and don't take, don't go to events? There's just so many times that John goes the extra mile, reaching out to people. He'll pick up the phone and call someone. And you and I, we don't like talking on the phone. And I think, why can't I just do the things like he does? Pick up the phone and call. If it's someone who's lost someone, they've lost a loved one, and I don't know what to say, my heart's broken for them. And so I don't naturally want to call them because I'll think to myself, they don't really want to talk to anyone right now. If they answer, what would I say? But how better to represent God than to call someone and say, my heart hurts for you. What an opportunity to grow. So anyway, I kind of went off on a tangent there, but I just think that sometimes preachers' wives may tend to be more introverted, and we can't use that as an excuse to not take part in the things that God puts in our path, and then play the victim or play the martyr and say that so-and-so doesn't like me. Well, I just wonder how much effort we've put into it,
Yeah. And sometimes you hear that they'll say, no one's had us into their home, no one's done this. And again, how much effort are we putting into it and having us into our home? And that's not why we do it in the first place.
Right.
But yeah, good things to consider. Hospitality, which we had a whole episode on recently, I guess I don't remember. But I think about all the different homes that we've been in and all the open hearts and open hearts that we've enjoyed through the years, and they've all stuck in my mind and lodged themselves completely as sweet memories for our children as they were growing up and for us now. And as we said in that hospitality episode, there's just something extra special about being in somebody's home.
Yeah.
And a lot of times when you're in ministry, if people are going to have anybody over, they're going to have the preacher and his family over. So that's been good. And the very next one was great meals. And that's because of
It's always going to be about food, right?
Exactly. Getting into people's home, and they might find out what your favorite dessert is, or usually they find out what the preacher's favorite dessert is.
Yeah. John will call it a 10-pound meeting sometimes. He'll come back and say that was a
Exactly.
10-pound meeting. I gained 10 pounds. But he
Yeah.
always comes home with recipes. So
Yep.
I
He
don't know
always
these
done that
people,
well.
but he'll come home with a recipe and a story about this family because he loves that.
Yeah. Yeah. Life events. Think how often we get to participate in people's big life events like weddings and births and funerals and
front row seat to happy.
Front row seat. We get to experience that with them, and those pivotal moments in their lives we get to be a part of. So that's pretty special. Compassion. I already alluded to that earlier, but some of my biggest stumbles and goofs have been pretty public. And so, just experiencing firsthand how compassionate God's people can be and how willing they are to give you a hug and tell you they love you and to hang in there. I've experienced all of that firsthand and am so grateful for it. And
I think it's encouraging for members to see that the preacher and his family are just ordinary people. It's like we were talking about with hospitality. When you walk into someone's home that's perfect and everything is in place and there's no specks of dust, there's nothing, and we all think, oh, I don't want them to come to my house. It's the same. It's true with our lives. If we have this appearance of having it all, we're on top of everything and we don't have anything wrong with us, and people see us and go, oh, I don't want to let them into my life, not just our homes, but in my life, because I'm so far from that. But if they see in a real way that we mess up and we own up to it and have some humility, I think that is encouraging to them.
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't think I need to go out of my way too much to tell people that, because it's pretty apparent. It's pretty apparent that I don't have it all together. So, and then I thought about the role model that my sons had, and their father as a gospel preacher, and someone getting to meet people in the Lord's kingdom and be in their homes and serve in ministry. I'm so grateful that they get to experience that up close and personal. And mission trips, I already mentioned that. We don't have to take time off from work for that because it is our work. And then fellowship, kindred spirits with other people in ministry. I love preachers. I love meeting preachers' wives. That's always fun. I'm gonna skip some of these just for the sake of time, but elders. We have the best bosses, and I'm so appreciative of them. We get to see a lot of times what a lot of people don't get to see, and appreciate them for their labor of love and their countless hours of prayer and tears. The elder and his wife, the blood, sweat, and tears, if you want to call it, that they put into the work. And a lot of times most of that goes unnoticed and unappreciated. And talk about people who always have to take the high road. I just really appreciate them and getting an opportunity to see them at work up close.
And again, I think we have something to do with that relationship that we have with them. If we assume, because maybe we had a bad experience somewhere else, if we assume it's going to be the same wherever we go, it's like the door is already shut before we've even tried. And I know I've heard people say that you get a little bit gun shy if you've had a bad experience, but that's just premeditated. Let's see, what was that saying again? Christy Pogue, she's the one that taught it to me, that expectations are premeditated resentments. And so if we have an expectation that that the elders are going to be harsh, that they're not going to be interested in your family, they're going to be critical, if we go into any relationship like that, it's going to happen that way because you've already decided it's going to be that way. So I think we have everything to do with a relationship with the elders.
Yeah, I think people live up or down to your expectations of them.
Exactly.
The members, the elders, if you typically assume the best about people, I think most people live up to that. But if you go in with a chip on your shoulder and take things personally and assume the worst, well, you're probably going to see that.
That's the only bad kind of chip. I like all the other chips.
Same. Baptisms. How cool is that? That no matter what time of day or night, rarely do we have to miss them. Yeah. We get to witness those baptisms. Bible studies. Think about all the Bible studies you've been able to be a part of and to see the truth working on tender hearts, the most special moment in a life of ministry. And we get to be a part of that, being with all kinds of people, that's good and bad. Like you said, when I started mentioning those growth opportunities and your mind went to, maybe some criticism of things, but being around different types of people that are not maybe somebody you'd be naturally drawn to in your closest circle, but different than you. And maybe you have to work through that relationship somehow. And it ends up being this huge blessing, just to know them and serve them and try to understand them.
I've thought times before, and I may have mentioned this, but every new school year, you don't know who's about to walk through the door. And it's not just, I say that because we're at Bear Valley where new students come in August and sometimes in January. And we've done that at Southwest, but in just preaching families, it could be any time of the year. But when I think someone could walk through that door that's going to change my life and that I'll have the opportunity to change theirs. And in particular, I think this of my friend Alice Stone, that they came, I don't know what year it was. I want to say somewhere around 2000, 2001 to go to school at Southwest. And I remember I can still see in my mind's eye when she walked in the door here at the church building in Dripping Springs. And we knew they were coming because they were coming to school, but I didn't know anything about them. And so it was an exciting thing. It's like, oh, she's around my age and maybe we'll become friends. Well, we did. And we're still the best of friends. And I just, that kind of reminded me that anytime that door opens and someone else walks in, it could be somebody that becomes a dear friend. It could be somebody that maybe you're not going to be dear friends, but they're going to be friends and there's someone that God put in your path. So take advantage of it. And so many times, like you said, over and over, we've been blessed by relationships.
Isn't it interesting how often that when you meet somebody for the first time, you might think, I don't know about them. Or you don't hit it off right away, and then they end up being one of your dearest friends. I can't remember. I mean, I don't even know how many times Neil and I have said things like, who would have ever thought, they would end up being one of our dearest friends,
and isn't it usually because you've done something together?
Yes.
You've worked in ministry together. You've gone on a mission trip or something.
Served in some way together. Yep, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. And just
blessing.
Taking the time to get to know people and see them really for who they are. Yeah.
Yeah.
And letting them see you. Goes both ways. Well, that's good. There's a lot of little things on here, but we don't have all day. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I did write. I wrote down some things. What, when we were talking about what we were going to talk about on this episode, what do we want others to know about the preacher's wives or the preacher's families and living a life in ministry? And one of the things that I started writing down, what do we want and what would we like from other members of the church? What is it that we would love to see? And that's kind of where I was going with at the very beginning when you asked me. One of the things was relationship, and to not be necessarily treated differently just because we are the preacher's family, but we want true friendship with others. And sometimes for some of us who've had bad experiences, we tend to hold ourselves at arm's length. And my prayer is that we would stop doing that, because it just doesn't help anybody. You don't want to be hurt, maybe, or you're expecting to be hurt again. That's not helpful, but we do want relationship from fellow members. I think another thing we want is for others to take responsibility to be involved in church activities, and not just us, but that other members are responsible to be involved in church activities, because we're Christians together and we're all in this work. We're working shoulder to shoulder. And sometimes I think there have been preachers' families who feel like others look at it as just your job. And I know that there are some people out there that say that. They might say, well, that's your job. And in some ways, we do have the time. That's what our job is, to spend all of our, time at work. You think of an 8 to 5 job, and this is not that typical 8 to 5 job, but other members can work alongside us as they have time. We want that. We just want to work on church projects, on activities in the community alongside other members. I think something else that we want is the possibility that we can put roots down. And there are a lot of preachers' families that don't expect to be able to do that. We did. And I think it's very highly unusual that every one of our kids went through the entire school system from kindergarten through high school here in Dripping Springs. So we have roots here. John had roots here to begin with. And I do, again, feel like that's unusual, but it's not impossible. And so just the possibility that could happen. I think for another thing we want is for our kids to find friendship and acceptance among the other kids in the congregation, and to not be looked at as different, to not be held up as a standard necessarily, because our kids are going to make mistakes. But we want for our children to find friendship, every kid deserves that. I think another thing that we want is to see dedication among other members. And don't you just love that when you go, and I know you have found this at Lehman. I know you found it at Bear Valley. Other families who were not on the ministry staff, who felt like God's work in Denver, God's work in Bowling Green wasn't just your job, but it was their job. I mean, I think of what you told me that Russell said, are you ready for a challenge? I know he's an elder, but I don't know if he's retired or if he's working, but that wasn't his profession necessarily. And I hate to think of ministry as a profession, but you and I both know what it means to have other members of the church to be just as dedicated to God's work as you are. That just fills my heart with joy when we know people like that.
Yes.
So those are just a few of the things that I thought of, that what we would like to see from fellow members.
Yeah, that's good. That's good.
Good.
Well, okay. So I think if we were going to sum it all up, we would just say that this is the blessed life, and
Absolutely.
it doesn't mean it's perfect and that it's always easy, but it's very rewarding, very fulfilling. And we hope that maybe we should talk about that more. Maybe we should focus more on that and be thankful for it and draw more attention to it, and encourage other people too, to see that we're all on the same team. We're all serving God together. And, let's just keep shining the light of Christ and keep loving each other, extending grace to each other, and let God work through all of us the way he intended from the very beginning.
As they say, the retirement plan is out of this world.
Exactly.
And I feel like that there will be preachers' wives who listen to this, and they might think, well, they haven't experienced what we've experienced. And I feel like we're feeling like we need to, what's the word, where you have to have a caveat for everything. And we don't want anyone to be hurt by anything we've said, because we know that struggles are real. We've had them. But you and I both just feel very strongly that having the right mindset plays such a huge part and how you handle the bad things that come along with being in ministry, and realizing that it's in any job that you do that there are
Mhm.
going to be negative things. And
Sure.
there's just so much that we can make better by how we approach it and how we decide ahead of time that we're going to handle things,
Mhm.
and promising to lift one another up, whether it's you and I, other friendships that we have in ministry, John and me, you and Neil. The devil is trying to get between us. He's trying to come between our marriages. He's trying to come between relationships and churches. And we just have to determine that we're not going to let him do that. So just, I
Yeah.
guess, a caveat.
Yeah, that's good. And we definitely are not discounting anything that anybody else has experienced, like we said in the beginning. And I know people that are right now in very difficult situations, actually, but those get a lot of press,
Mm-hmm.
that's talked about a lot.
Yeah.
And so we just kind of want to balance that out a little bit and share the good things about it as well.
Good. Mm-hmm.
Are we ready to move into our random question?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Are you sure? Do
Yeah.
you want to say some more? Okay.
No.
So our random question is, this is like a fill in the blank. At first I was going to say, we'll share what is your worst habit,
Mm-hmm.
but then I changed my mind and we'll just do a fill in the blank. I have a bad habit of fill in the blank. So it could just be any of your bad habits. And
Uh-huh.
what would you like to share?
Oh, where do I
can't,
begin?
I know, I can't wait for this.
There were so many.
Do you
I have a
what?
lot
Do
of
you
bad
even
habits.
have one?
Oh my, I do. You know them. I have lots of them. So how do I
Well,
pick just one?
you'll have to
So
pick just one.
did you say Neil had to pick just
No,
one?
you will have to
Oh,
pick just one. You'll have to
okay.
pick just one.
Probably the one that has the most ramifications is that I have a bad habit of procrastinating.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Rats. I didn't think about that one. I feel like I should have picked
Rats?
that one.
Oh no, I just put things off that it's not even necessarily things that I don't want to do. It's just things that I know I'm going to have to take some time. Well, studying for a certain presentation or writing a manuscript or an article or whatever. And I know, how it just takes a while to get yourself into that groove and get yourself engrossed in a topic and to not have all the distractions. And it just takes me
Yes.
an hour at least to get in that groove. And
I'm
then
the exact same way. Yeah.
so, I'm like, okay, so Candy Crush, that dumb game, that I've had to delete that thing twice
Oh
from my
no.
phone, and then somehow it ends up back on my phone. And I'll think to myself, okay, I just need to play a couple of games of Candy Crush to kind of just to get me relaxed or whatever. Does that sound like a junkie? I'm a Candy Crush junkie, and that feeds into my bad habit of procrastinating.
Oh.
So taxes, I hate taxes. I always feel like preparing to turn that stuff over to the accountant or whatever. I'm like, it feels like there's a policeman driving behind me. I know I'm trying not to do anything wrong, but I might be, and they're going to catch me. And that's what I feel like doing taxes. So I procrastinate and I put them off, and we end up having to file an extension every year. And anyway, so procrastinating.
Oh, that's a good one.
It's a bad one.
Well, it's a good bad one.
Okay.
I could have claimed that one also.
Right.
I also had a multitude of things. Neil said, well, what are you going to say? And I was like, well, I could use this one or this one or this one or this one.
Yep.
I decided to go with, probably because I live with this on a daily basis, I have a bad habit of wanting something sweet every single day.
Oh.
And so I know that's just a physical thing, but it really does affect my mood.
Yeah.
And I don't want a lot. It's not even like I have to have a dessert with every meal or anything, but usually about mid-afternoon, I just want some small thing. So like we try to eat our big meal at lunchtime, and I just want some small thing right after, even if it's just one of those miniature almond joys or, just something. And I it probably means that I have a sugar addiction. Because if I don't, like if we're on the run or and I'm not going to eat it late at night. And so I've missed that window of opportunity in my mind. That's how I view it. And I've missed that window of opportunity. Then it makes me grouchy. Like, I didn't even get something sweet today. This was a rough day.
See, I see nothing wrong with that. I don't see anything wrong with needing a little sweet something every day.
Okay, well then I'll pick a different one. I also
I mean, if it's a bad habit to you, that's fine, but
I
maybe it's because I have the
also
trouble with it myself.
also have a bad habit of ignoring certain household tasks.
Yeah. Like which ones?
All the gross ones.
Cleaning the toilets.
Hate cleaning the toilet. I
Yeah.
hate scrubbing the shower. You know, I just ugh.
Have you tried that daily shower spray stuff that's supposed to cut down? Does it not help?
Yeah. I think, especially here, I think we have really hard water or
Yeah.
something. I don't know,
Yeah.
but there's always, and I really don't like to use harsh chemicals, but I really
Mhm.
need something a lot stronger than what I have because I feel like there's always a layer of like soap scum or something. I don't even know what it is that I have to. It just
Yeah.
never. I feel like our bathroom sinks always look dingy, and so does the shower. So that's gross. One. There you go.
Okay. I can just see it now. Next week's pictures and looking up are going to be
Nope.
dingy shower stall.
Nope.
Yeah. You know, there's always those things at your house that you don't think about until someone's coming over. And then all of a sudden you're like,
Yeah, that's when it gets some
gross,
attention. Yeah.
nasty.
My ceiling fans would be exhibit A there.
All you got to do is just keep those spinning and then nobody will know
That's
how
right.
dusty they are.
Nobody will see it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then don't make the mistake I did one time of reversing it because then all the dust just goes flying off.
Oops.
Yeah. Okay. Since
All
you had two,
right.
I have two. I stick my
Okay.
head in the sand. I stick my head in the sand about things.
Yeah,
I don't want to
do that
know.
also.
Mhm.
You and I are the same person.
Pretty much. Except you like a whole lot more foods than I do.
Yeah, pretty much.
Well, we made it all the way through this episode without saying pooped.
Oh my goodness, you just did that. You know what Neil said to me
What?
yesterday? He said, so is that like your thing now? I said, no. In fact, from here on in, we will never do it again. He just said, right.
Mm-hmm. Whatever. That's another myth about preachers' wives is that they're all perfectly mature and don't say anything that they shouldn't say. And yeah, that would not be us. We have a sense of humor, right?
Yes, exactly.
A very mature one.
Very mature, cultured sense of humor. All right. Well, this was a good conversation. I'm glad we had time to have it together and thankful for your friendship and all the ways I've learned from you in ministry, actually. I should have said that when we were on topic, but I still remember a lesson that you gave years ago on 5 things every preacher's wife should know. And it was superb.
Oh, thank you. I don't remember. Was that?
Yeah. I'll send it to you.
Okay. Sounds great.
Well, enjoy the rest of your day. Happy packing. Safe travels. I love you.
I'll be in Colorado next week.
That's right.
With better internet. So I love you too. I love you too. And appreciate you.